Wow, what a cool book. Welcome to 3 Things You Can Use, where Maddie and I analyze the worlds of entrepreneurship and self-improvement through books, 3 things at a time. This week's book is Pre-suasion, a revolutionary way to influence and persuade by Robert Cialdini. In this book, using the same combination of rigorous scientific research and accessibility that made Influence an iconic bestseller, Robert Cialdini explains how to capitalize on the essential window of time before you deliver an important message. This privileged moment for change prepares people to be receptive to a message before they experience it. Optimal persuasion is achieved only through optimal pre-suasion. In other words, to change minds, a persuader must also change states of mind. So, what are 3 things we can use from this book? Number 1, the influence of environment. Different things in our environment have different effects on us. These effects are usually hidden to us and not consciously thought about. They come in the form of associations. An example of an association would be an apple is associated with fruit, among other associations. But the associations in our environment come as cues and effects. A bedroom is associated with sleep. For example, when I enter my bedroom, I must move quickly towards my bed because if I don't, I'll drop unconsciously to the floor because of how strongly my bedroom is associated with sleep for me. Robert Cialdini gives us examples for how these environmental associations can change our moods, dispositions, states of mind, and can, what he calls, commission the machinery in our behalf. Examples. To approach a task with an achievement orientation, while perhaps at work, have contact with images of success and striving in accomplishment, such as a runner in a race, or even a cat poster, with a big word across the bottom, success. To give yourself a more analytical mindset, while figuring a budget, maybe, give yourself an environment of contemplation or thoughtfulness with things such as a statue or poster of Auguste Rodin's The Thinker. For a more humanitarian motivation, have posters of pictures of those humanitarian causes that you wish to affect, like a group of underfed children standing together in a picture. Change your environment and the associations of your environment, and genuinely affect your framings and feelings. Number 2, using metaphor. The pen is greater than the sword, and the most effective method of the pen is metaphor. Using imagery and analogy to compare a difficult concept with a more common one. Metaphors are extremely useful and have been helping people with difficult concepts since the curtain of humanity opened. But a metaphor also provides a framework and a context, and sometimes intentionally and sometimes not, that affects the concept for which the metaphor is supposed to simplify. For example, when people were presented the concept of crime as a ravaging beast, they were likely to see the solution as locking up criminals. But when they were presented crime as a raging virus, the solution was far from locking people up and was much more preventative. You cage a ravaging beast and you prevent a ravaging virus. These 2 different implications came from metaphors of the same concept, so you can see how dangerous and/or influential this concept can be. So you have to be careful with metaphor, but you can also see how you can use it to frame your concepts the way that you want to, while still being ethical, of course. Number 3, examples. And for the 3rd thing that you can use, here are a number of persuasive examples from the scientific studies in the book. If we want them to buy a box of expensive chocolates, get them to write down a number much larger than the price of the chocolates. If we want them to choose a bottle of French wine, we can expose them to French background music before they decide. If we want them to agree to try an untested product, we need first to inquire whether they consider themselves to be adventurous. If we want them to select a highly popular item, we can begin by showing them a scary movie. If we want them to feel warmly to us, we can hand them a hot drink. If we want them to be more helpful to us, we can have them look at photos of individuals standing close together. And if we want them to be more achievement-oriented, we can provide them with an image of a runner running a race. These all work, and they all work for many varying reasons. But what they do have in common is that they are all under the category of pre-suasion. They initially color people's states to be more beneficial to the desired end result that you want. So, to recap, use associations to optimize your environment. Use metaphor to control your meanings, and color people's states with persuasion, ethically, of course. Robert Cialdini actually does include a chapter on the reasons not to use the principles in his book unethically, and makes a strong case for how it is actually ruinous to be manipulative and ingenuine. I loved this book. It was like reading Malcolm Gladwell, my favorite author. Interesting studies and stories latticed with interesting concepts and principles, all under the framework of psychology. And I recommend this book to anyone interested in psychology, either the psychology of people altogether, or even just your own psychology and understanding that better. And for a question of the day, what would you think is a good persuasion to use, either on yourself or others? Comment below. And thank you for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss next week's video. And we'll see you next week.